Welcome to Checks and Balances. I'm Michael Vincent. This is James Blair. And this week, the king of the ring, the ultimate showdown, it's property versus shares.
Property versus shares, baby. The final countdown. So, property versus shares, the age-old battle. David versus Goliath, except they're all just Goliath. So, we get asked all the time. We've got people who love property because I can drive past it, I can touch it, I can feel it. Keep your hands to yourself, mate. Versus shares on the other side. So, we've got a case study breaking down the numbers. Look, if you want to jump to the end, I'll tell you right now, it depends on your situation. But Mike, we're going to go through some numbers. So should I start with the shares and then you can do the property?
Go for it.
Cool.
I'm still recovering from the singing. I'm not sure if we can afford the rights to that song, but we'll find out in post-production.
Yeah, sue me, baby. Please don't. I've got a child.
I'm never going to financially recover from this. It's Warner Brothers sues us.
Yeah. So let's say a couple has $160,000 to invest.
Yep.
And they save $500 a week. Now, to keep it nice and even, we're going to have them renting in both situations. Mm-hmm. So they're by invest in shares. They're obviously renting because you can't live in your sweet Tesla shares. And your property is going to be an investment property to make it easier. We are looking at 10-year performance of property versus shares. If you were to invest into shares, and we've assumed you would invest into an index fund to keep it nice and easy, and we've just used the S&P 500. Mikey V, what's the S&P 500?
It's top 500 companies in the States by market cap.
Cool. Which has yielded an average return historically of 10%. At the end of the 10 years, with your $160,000 plus $500 each week, you would have $601,000. But we have to talk about in here as well, gross returns versus net returns. So, Mike, what's a gross return?
Gross return is the headline return that you get from your assets. So if you see an investment fund promising you 10% per annum or a mortgage fund promising you 400% per annum, it is the gross return. The net return is that return, but you've got to take off fees. So any fees for going in and out or management fees. Tax on the transaction, big one, got to take that off. And then you've also got to take off inflation. Now, to keep this episode simple, we've ignored inflation in this example. But for example's sake, if I've got a gross return of 6%, I take off 0.5 for fees, I take off, say, I don't know, another 2% for tax, and then I take off 3% for inflation, it's not a great return afterwards.
Yeah. So in this example, we've got a gross return of 10%, which is S&P 500, 0.5% for fees, 3.14% for tax, and we're not doing inflation. The reason we're not doing inflation is I think I end up being like Rain Man trying to work out how inflation gets applied to property, and it just hurts my pretty little head. And so we get a net return excluding inflation of 6.37%. So let's have a look at property, Mike.
Right. So if we're looking at property, we're probably shifting up a weight class, right? Let's call shares flyweight. And property probably...
Flyweight's 56 kilos, right? That's a Kai Kara France weight. I want at least middleweight for shares. I want a bit of Izzy in my life.
Okay. I'll give you bantamweight. So you're moving up to heavyweight. Now, why are you moving up to heavyweight?
Because you're disrespecting me, that's why.
Why are you Rampage Jackson moving up to heavyweight? Actually, he wasn't even heavyweight, was he? When you're in
light heavyweight.
Yeah. So let's say, same scenario, couple have $160,000 to invest. In property, we call that the deposit. They then buy an $800,000 townhouse, Auckland, anywhere, 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 1 car park. The rent on that house, $700 per week, which is $36,400 per annum, and that's a gross yield of 4.5%. They've got a $640,000 mortgage with a long-term interest rate of 6%. Sometimes it'll be more, sometimes it'll be less. It's a new build property, so there is interest deductibility on that interest cost from the loan.
Quickly, interest deductibility, quick 101.
Interest deductibility is the ability for you to deduct the cost of the interest or a percentage of it from the profit that you make off the investment. It reduces your profit and then reduces your tax.
Yeah. So if you buy an existing house, your tax bills on this kind of house probably going to be 15 grand more.
Yeah.
A year.
So there's interest deductibility on the investment property. They also save $500 per week, which can also be put towards the mortgage. The mortgage isn't the only thing that they have to pay, though. There are also other costs with an investment property, and people often overlook this, actually. Rates. For this one, we'll assume $3,500 per annum.
Yep.
Insurance is usually about $2,000 per annum. There's maintenance on the property that you are going to have to pay for. $500 per year usually covers it. And then about $1,250 for accounting. So each year, we're budgeting about $7,250 for the costs. And that's excluding the mortgage.
And excluding a property manager's fee as well. We don't have it in the numbers, but you probably want to slap that in there as well.
Yeah, true. So this property was in Auckland, and Auckland house prices have historically increased on average about 6% per annum. So that is the rate we're going to take. At the end of year 10, their house value is now $1.35 million, and the mortgage is $447,000. If they would sell their house at that point, they would net around about $900,000. So if you're playing with the heavyweights, if you want to get in the real game, you go property and you're about $300,000 better off than if you invested in shares. I'm sorry, James. In the fight game, we consider that a knockout blow.
Mate, I'm still ducking and weaving, right? I might be on my back, but I ain't out, baby. So property based on those numbers, 900 grand of profit, 900 grand of equity, shares about 600,000, right? So I mean, it's pretty much a 50% difference. It is quite a large difference. Really important thing to touch on there, because it's a new build. New builds have a 5-year bright line where if you extend past it, you don't have to pay tax. So if we're past 10 years and we sold the property, with how the world is set up at the moment, there's no capital gains tax to be thinking about.
Cool. Now, James here still might be ducking and dodging and weaving, bit of a volume puncher. I'm sorry, James. The thing that I have failed to mention, or that I haven't talked about, is what is the other thing we like doing when you got a bit of equity in that property? You leverage and you get another property. So actually, you can grow this return by being an active investor in property and continuing to purchase using that equity throughout the investment timeline.
Yeah. See, now I'm on the mat.
Now I'm just kicking you when you're down.
I'm on the mat, right? And I'm looking up at the lights and I'm thinking 300,000. And the ref's looking at me. He goes, 7, 8, 9. And then like Tyson Fury, my eyes open up and I jump up in the air and I go, Mike, your goals. It depends on your goals and it depends on cash flow, baby. So, if you are investing in property, do you know what you're never going to see? Yeah, I promise you, you'll never ever see. Oh, James, I would like some passive income, please. You're never going to get that from property unless you go to freaking Gizzy. And you know what you're not going to get if you go to Gizzy? Capital gains. Now, you might say, James, historically I've got capital gains. But it's Gizzy, so I wouldn't say, that's promised.
Yeah. And James is right here, although he's very...
Wait, what was that bit? One more time.
He is very obtuse about it, is that it does depend on your goals and your age and stage, right? So you can't sell a bedroom to go on holiday. Property is a great asset to grow your wealth to get you to retirement, but it is not the best asset to have in retirement because you can't withdraw a regular income from it.
Yeah, and I would argue, so Mike's saying I'm a bantamweight, he's a heavyweight with property. I would argue, pound for pound, shares are a better asset. And why are they a better asset? Their returns are historically higher and they're far more diversified. If you are investing into property, fundamentally, you are investing into one asset in a small island nation that tends to flood and get hit by cyclones day to day and is susceptible to government policy changes. You don't think bad things can happen? Look at the Irish property market. Look at the Japanese property market. Things can change. Shares, you might be investing into thousands of different companies. People who go, it's not tangible, I can't touch it. I'm sorry, these people are out there hiring people, building products, building services, making the world better. Mate, you're just chucking some bricks up in the air.
LOL, loser. Think about Enron. Think about all the scams. Think about when a company just goes bust and disappears off the face.
Think
of the
about a
earth.
developer fund.
You can't go to sleep at night inside of your Tesla shares, right?
So, I mean, I could buy a Tesla and then that'd be really cool.
Yeah.
So shares pound for pound, I would argue is better from a return and a diversification piece. The main thing to do with here is when is a bank going to give you money?
Yeah.
So when can you go and buy? So $160,000 investment versus a $800,000 investment. It's not a fair playing field.
Yeah.
And that's why property is such an attractive asset. You can get 6% on 160,000 or you can get 6% on $800,000, right?
Yeah, 100%. And for everyone else, or for everyone out there who's looking at this and going, yeah, but I can leverage off my share portfolio. I can get leverage off my options or my indexes. Yeah, you can. Generally speaking, though, the fluctuations in the market and in the value of the underlying securities will mean that you either get stopped out, or if you don't have a stop loss in place, you will lose at some point, probably the majority of the investment, to the point where your brokerage house calls you up and says, you need to recapitalize the investment or we are shutting the investment. It is a very risky thing to leverage on these sorts of investments. The housing market, a bit more stable, and there is not the sort of risk.
How much has the property market gone down in the last 18 months?
Yeah, it's back 20%, but you tell me how many people have been stopped out by it. You know what I mean? So even though there is fluctuations in it, it's less chance of getting stopped out by the bank.
That's true. I mean, a lot of it's just how the banking system's set up. Like trying to get cash flow lending for a business versus most businesses are set up versus I've got some equity in my property, right?
Yep. 100%.
Yeah. So look, they're both great assets and really we want them both to be part of your financial plan at the right stage.
Yeah.
When you've got income and you don't need a passive income, property is a great place to play because if you put, and the other thing, right, interest rates might be 6-7%. If you have to put $15,000 a year into an asset to top it up and you're making $30,000 in capital gains in return, 100% return on your money does sound like a Ponzi scheme, but it's just leverage.
Yeah.
But on the other side, so when you're earning an income, it's really good. We've done episodes in the past where property isn't the right investment. When is it not the right investment? When you need cash flow. And when you need cash flow, property, you've got all of your costs, you've got the mortgage, you've got tax, you've got property managers. You're not going to get cash flow. So that's where shares become so good because they're liquid. Yeah. You can eat into the investment over time. They will pay you a much better net real return. It's just stage of life.
Yeah, 100%. And it is difficult for us sometimes to convince people who are so used to property and it's worked so well for them that actually now's the time to diversify away from it. However, that's the importance of having a long-term financial plan. It's not someone calling you up when you're 60 going, you got to sell all of these properties to get a better lifestyle because you just won't believe them. So if you get a plan in early, you can grow your wealth using the appropriate asset for your stage of life, minimizing the risk, making sure that it's diversified, and then at the right time, changing the assets a bit and making sure that you set yourself up.
Yeah, so this boxing match, this UFC fight, whatever you want to call, has ended up in a very exhilarating 90-minute soccer game, a 0-0 draw. Do you know what is not a 0-0 draw?
What's that, James?
Subscribe, review, give us the love because we're giving you so much love. And we'll catch you next time.
Cheers.